No, Arpin, when you buy a Blu-ray or DVD, I won't bother to explain to our younger audience what those things are, but there are some goodies at the end so far. They like extra content or things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, well, that episode is a little bit like that. It's a bit of a special edition off the regular course of our podcast, a summer edition of the Basu and Godin Notebook today.
When the Blu-ray version of our podcast comes out, this episode will be in the extra content section. Yes.
That's it, and I hope that CGI will have done something to my face. Well, to both our faces,
To
actually.
both our faces. I'm in full summer mode. I'm not shaving. I'm not cutting my hair.
No, I know.
You look the same. You're remarkably consistent in
I
how
know.
good you look. I have a wide range of looks, and this is
Yeah,
definite off season, not on TV look. This is what this looks like.
that's good. All
Yeah.
right, so we decided that we would just dig into some memories of our years on the beat because recently Jaroslav Halak announced his retirement, and we thought it'd be a good starting point to delve into like little stories about different hockey players during our years of covering this team. We both started covering the Canadiens prior to the Halak spring, but it's a pivotal moment. I mean, it was. I mean, we'll dig into some of those stories, but I think that the moment that he made us feel back then in 2010 um, was, of course, the Canadiens went on to go to another conference final after that, even to the Stanley Cup finals. But those playoffs in 2010, thanks to Halak, but other guys too, were extremely significant and created one of the best memories that I've had since I'm covering this team. I don't know about you.
Well, it's more than the memories. I mean, I don't want to say I owe my career to that spring, but I definitely might have veered off course had that not happened. Honestly, like that's a pivotal moment, not just as a memory, just but I might have stopped doing this as a profession had that not happened. I mean, I'd been freelancing for 10 years, was having a lot of trouble sort of making ends meet. It was very difficult to kind of keep doing this job, and I'd gotten to a point at that point where I started considering doing something else because I just could not get a full-time job. You know, I was covering for the Canadian Press. I had all sorts. I had like 4 or 5 different jobs that kind of cobbled together a living.
Mm.
But that spring, I got a freelance gig again from the CBC to be their blogger for the playoff series, and that gave me an excuse to sort of pay my own way on the road. And so, you know, I wasn't traveling with the team at the time because I was a freelancer, so I had to pay for my own expenses. So I got another couple of gigs, and because I was on the road, I met people from NHL.com in Washington at the Irish Channel, which you know very well, which is right near the current day Capital One Center. I forget what it was called at the time, but
Verizon Center.
Verizon Center, right? Um, Met them, uh, you know, became friendly with them, had a few drinks, and then after that playoff run ended, I found out that NHL.com was looking for a correspondent in Montreal. I called those guys up, got that job. That turned into a year later an actual full-time job, launching the French website for the NHL, and then the rest is history. So I would not, you know, had that spring not happened, um, and you know, I mean, I met them in Washington, so really, if the Canadiens got knocked out in that round, maybe it would have been the same thing. But I definitely tie my career and everything that's happened since then to Jaroslav Halak. So when he announced his retirement, I had a thought of that spring and how consequential it was for me.
Yeah.
But yes, I would agree from a pure hockey standpoint. I think Game 6 against Washington at the Bell Center remains um, probably the best goaltending performance I have covered live. And Price has had a ton of them that are in the running for this, but I don't recall ever seeing a goalie perform like that in such a critical situation with the season on the line. Um, and
53 saves, man, that
53
night.
saves and shutting down the biggest offensive juggernaut in hockey at the time. It was and the Bell Center that night. Uh, I mean the press gondola was shaking and
Yeah.
literally shaking, and so I have not heard the building that loud. Uh, Pretty much, it's top five in terms of loudest Bell Center moments, and probably top three, I would think,
Yeah.
that I've ever encountered.
So for people who are not who don't read you on a regular basis at the Athletic, or did not read me back when I was working with you back in 2020 for the 10-year anniversary of that spring, we did a long feature with our
A
friends Sean
long
Gordon,
feature, yes.
and I spoke to Jaroslav Halak on that for that story, and he said that it's at the top of his list
Yeah.
of what he did in the NHL. He went to the Stanley Cup Finals with the Boston Bruins, but he was the backup goalie back then. So he said, had I been, had we won the cup, even from sitting on the bench, I guess it would have qualified as the highest point. But me being in nets that night, it's at the top of the list. And there were all those stop signs that had been replaced, right?
Hmm.
Stop replaced by Halak, and he had a friend making one for him, and he says that he's got one of those stop signs in his home in Slovakia, so it remained very significant to him. And it's funny because in Montreal, everybody's always ready for goalie controversy, right?
Yeah.
It's such a low hanging fruit
Hmm.
to question the number one goalie, and to which extent you can ride the hot hand. It's always been that case. I mean, even when I was younger and there was Patrick Roy at the beginning, Brian Hayward was there, and when Brian Hayward was uh, was hot, well, who's the number one goalie? And it became over time with Jose Theodore, with Jeff Hackett, Cristobal Huet, David Habisher, always a goalie controversy brewing. It's funny because since Carey Price, we haven't had those all that much. Although this past season, when Jakob Dobeš started stringing a few good performances, I remember that
Oh
some
yeah.
fans went back to the old reflexes and said, maybe he could take over from Montembeault. But back then, that was a truly goalie controversy, at least in the media, not in the room, because the players back then in 2010 thought, okay, Yaro's on a heater, but Carey remains our goalie for the future. But it all started with that tweet from Alan Walsh, right? Who
Yeah.
who who posted like Price's record, like he said Price has 10 wins, 32 losses in his last 42 starts. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay. So I think the players thought it was weird a little bit, but from that point on, and that was I think in November, which has been always the difficult month in every Price's season, is like he's got a dip in November. But from that point on, there
Well,
was
we should
the,
we
the
should we should we should recall the quote Hal Gill gave us for that story, where he just says, "I remember thinking, why is an agent talking, and why are we listening to him exactly?" We we knew Yaro didn't want to be there by that point. He wanted a chance to play and be the starter. But
yeah.
for us, Carey was our goalie. We all knew he was the guy and that he was going to be the guy.
No,
But I could just
yeah.
picture Hal Gill saying that. Why is an agent talking, and why are we listening to him exactly?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I mean, Alan Walsh got the result that he was looking for. And years later, with Marc-André Fleury with being stabbed by the sword in the back,
Oh, yeah.
with the Vegas Golden Knights, same
Yeah.
idea. He draws the attention to him, but it exposes a situation that needs to be resolved to a certain extent. But I mean, Halak took care of it that year by stealing the net from Price, at least for a while, and it
Well,
served both of
Price,
their careers.
it did, and I think Price was the biggest beneficiary because his mortality as a hockey player became plain to him, and his need to take this job uh, as seriously as he possibly can became obvious, and some of his, I don't think it would be wrong to say, but some of his shortcomings as a professional at that stage in his career, he realized he couldn't do that anymore. He had to be in top physical condition. He had to take care of himself. He had to be disciplined. Stay home more often. He was out and about pretty frequently at that time. So this was not only consequential in the sense that the Canadiens had not gone that far in the playoffs since 1993, but it also kickstarted Carey Price's career in a very significant way, and sort of taught him that if he does not take this, if he does not give this the weight it requires, that his career could be over that fast. And so it was doubly significant for the Canadiens.
Yeah,
But not, I
abs-
mean, Jaroslav Halak wound up being in St. Louis not shortly thereafter, but still, the influence he had on Carey Price was a big part of that spring.